Hi, I'm Luann Worley with Rockin Book Reviews, and I'm so excited today to introduce a new debut author, uh, Tiffany. Elaine. Tell us a little about yourself, namely where you grew up, how many siblings you have, and fun activities you used to do as a youth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luann, for having me on Rockin' Book Reviews. I'm super excited to be here. And just thanks for taking the time to take a look at my book. Let's see. So I grew up in South Florida, and my family's from a very small town in Southern Illinois, both my mom and my dad's side. But before I was born, they moved down to South Florida, the entire family on both sides. So I was lucky enough to grow up by the beach, and that was pretty awesome. I spent all my young years there with my brother, stepbrother, stepsister, and a huge family of uncles and aunts and cousins, which I'm still close to today. Really important influence in my life. We all grew up down there, and then people kind of grew up and went their separate ways a little bit. But I ended up after college in North Carolina, as many of my family did as well. So I kind of feel like I did the first half of my life in Florida, the second half in North Carolina, and I'm now here in a little town called Huntersville, North Carolina, and we love it here. So got a lot of family here, a few folks back in Florida enjoying the beach, but most of us are here. And let's see, growing up, we were a huge family just in terms of eating, cooking, hanging out at the park, a lot of entertainment type things. We all went to the movies a lot. We loved TV. Not so much writing, other than my mother actually was a entertainment writer in the 80s. She wrote some screenplays, which I was really lucky to read and help her edit them a little bit as a teen. And actually later on ended up writing a few screenplays with her, so that was a lot of fun. We also have in my family musical talent. I do not have that, but some of them have musical talent, although I could just pretend to be the singer Tiffany from the 80s. That's about my only talent in music. But we've got, oh gosh, folks doing their own blogs and websites. We've got actors and photographers and a lot of entertainment type folks. So I kind of grew up a little bit in the business. But my real passion was and is writing fiction. So I spent a lot of my career in different genres, different industries, but this is my first novel, and I'm super excited. I actually love middle grade fiction. I'm a big reader of middle grade fiction, and so that's what I decided to write. So Miss Mulligan and the Enchanted Ice Cream is my first novel.
That is exciting. When you were very young, from what I have read, instead of doing homework, you were having your friends read chapters you were writing.
I'm guilty. I admit it. I did do some homework occasionally. I was a very good student. Thank you very much. But I did, the impetus of that is kind of a funny story. My brother and I went to a very small private school, which was far away from our home at the time. So we had a very, very long bus ride. And so on this couple hour long bus ride each way, my friends would get bored. So I kind of started telling stories and trying to be creative and entertain them. And I wrote them down we didn't have any tablets or phones or anything, of course. So I wrote them on notebook paper, just longhand, and sort of passed them around at lunch when I would go to, school. And soon I had some fans that were, interested in my work. Now, I will tell you that these stories were very melodramatic and probably not very well written. I think I have some somewhere, but they entertained my friends, and I kind of got hooked on writing during that time. I later went to college for creative writing and literature, so taught for a little while also English. So yeah, I just kind of developed a love early of reading and writing. And
why do you think this is? What do you think was your inspiration to begin writing?
I think that's a good question. I think similar as you've kind of alluded to on your bio, I think that my mother's influence was pretty big for me. She was a writer. She had worked in journalism. She had worked in screenwriting. She did lots of things, including performing in the 80s. So I think probably that influence sort of, tipped the scales for me. And I ended up loving it. Plus, I just loved to read and loved to watch TV. So I was just kind of inundated with entertainment products.
That's great. Okay, what other person have you had who had, yeah, what other person has had a profound impact in your life?
I would definitely have to say my grandparents on both sides. So my father's mother, Hazel, we called her Nanny. She was a very independent woman. She worked really hard and she raised all of her kids by herself because her husband died before I was ever born. And I learned from her the value of a well placed game of gin rummy. She taught us how to play gin rummy at her table and made biscuits and gravy. So that was great. And then on my mother's side, my grandparents, Ray and Pearl, tremendous influences in my life. My grandfather was a World War II vet, and he also went on to run an auto body shop for most of his life. So I spent a lot of time around cars. I didn't learn anything about how to fix cars, by the way, but that's okay. I had plenty of uncles and grandparents and people in my life to fix cars. And then my grandmother Pearl, who is still alive, I'm super lucky. She's turning 90 in September. She ran a beauty shop for most of my growing up down in South Florida called Palm Trail Beauty Salon. And so I was either in the body shop or at the beauty shop, one of the two, growing up. And it was a really happy place. They put a tremendous value on family and spending time together. They were all very normal, basic people, but we had a really happy life and a fun childhood, and they were the drivers of that.
Sounds like a wonderful childhood.
It was.
Okay, you aren't the recording artist, Tiffany Elaine.
No.
What other endeavors have you pursued in your life besides writing?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, as I say, I don't know if this is really a skill, but I'm a big consumer of film and TV, and I actually have a huge watch list of things that I watch and listen to. I also love audiobooks now. I'm super into audiobooks. I've probably downloaded or listened to about 200 of those. So I would say, in addition to spending time with my family and friends are a big part of it, a lot of my extra time, if I have any, if I'm not working on my own stuff, is kind of trying to absorb what's out there. There's a bunch of great streaming shows out there and original programming that I just absolutely love. It's truly my heart and soul, and it's what I love to do.
That sounds great. It sounds like you're well-rounded here.
Yes, at least when it comes to entertaining people or being entertained, yes, indeed.
Okay. Where did you get the idea in writing your first novel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some years back, I was writing various things, and I worked on a few screenplays and such, but I hadn't really started on a novel yet. I had started a lot of stories, and what would happen is I would get about 20 or 30 pages in, and I kind of would flake out. That's just how it happened for me. But one morning I woke up and I had this kind of dream or image or whatever of my character, Miss Mulligan, and I really just had a visual of her, the idea of a girl transforming into a woman, and I had the name Miss Mulligan. I didn't have a lot more than that when I woke up, but as I started to think through what that meant, I really think, Luann, probably it's because I was maybe scared of growing up overnight, so to speak. So I sort of maybe put that down on paper, put that experience on paper. But as I developed her story, I just really kind of resonated with some of the magical elements, but I wanted to keep it real, and I wanted to bake in a lot of my experiences. So the setting is in Florida and North Carolina. That's like what I grew up with. The small school that they go to, ALLG, is kind of based on, not exactly, but this similar experience that I had. And really the main thing is my friends. I have a really great set of friends, and some of my best friends I still have today are from grade school. And so, I didn't represent those friends in the characters, but I did represent the friendships and how important it was. And, I kind of grew up reading Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys, and so I liked a mystery, and I wanted to sort of bake that in there. But that was the initial inspiration. And then I just went down to the hard work of writing a story and outlining it and really coming up with it. But the initial inspiration was just sort of waking up with the idea. And the original name was Miss Mulligan's Enchanted Life. But as I started adding in the elements of the story and the ice cream, then I changed the title, and I fleshed it out a little bit more. So.
Well, I think that's a very clever subtitle.
Thank you.
Uh, okay. Without ruining it for readers, tell us a little about what this novel is about.
Absolutely. So this novel opens with Tabby Easterland. She's turning 12 years old, and she has a great birthday party with her two best friends. Her two best friends are Kat Dorset, who is an urban detective wannabe from New York, and her other friend is Dolly Hargrave, who is kind of a Southern Belle type character. So again, I'm sort of mixing two worlds from my background in South Florida and North Carolina, but she wakes up after that sleepover transformed, grown up. You know, she's all of a sudden big, and she doesn't understand why. So the novel basically follows her two friends, first of all, figuring out that she's really their friend, and then helping her to figure out what is going on, why is this happening. So as they sort of get into the mystery, it involves her long lost father, who's up in North Carolina in an institution. It involves some people from her past, and it involves two pretty scary characters. I thought they were kind of creepy, called the Black and White Sisters, who are sort of the villains or the bad ladies, witches, if you will, who have cursed Tabby. So I won't say more than that. That's what's on the jacket cover, but if you want to learn a little more, definitely check out the book. And I'm in the process of writing the second book now, and that will actually kind of expand on the magical elements of the book. So in the first book, there is this idea of the Council of Butterflies, which is a magical society that actually exists along with ours. And we dive into that in book 2 to learn more. Who are these people? You know, what are their real powers? How does that affect the girls and their friendship? At the end of the first book, we have left them in sort of a state of resolution, but not really. And you know they need to have more adventures, and they're on their way to South America. So the second book picks up right there where we left off.
How exciting. I find that the best books are often from what the author knows in her past, right, or his past. So I think that's very wise. What is your next big project in the making?
That's a great question. Well, I have to say my second and third books, I know for sure there's 3 books in this trilogy, possibly 4, but I think it's 3. But I am working on other projects as well. I have a young adult, more pure young adult novel that I'm working on, which is really kind of an action thriller. No magic about it. It's all kind of real world. And it, ironically enough, was sort of spawned in a weird way by those old stories I used to write on the bus. I had this one story called The Bus. How creative is that, right? Where these kids get stuck on a bus and some stuff happens. But I sort of took that idea and translated it to today's society and mixed it in with a personal experience I had in college where my brother and I went on a bus tour of Europe. So the story takes place, it's really a true drama and action story, takes place with these kids on a tour of Europe. They're seniors in high school, and they get involved, unfortunately, with terrorists, and some bad things happen. So it's exciting, and I'm working on that right now. And then I also am branching out, and I have a third project that I'm working on that is a thriller. It's more of a supernatural thriller. And it was a screenplay that I wrote a handful of years ago. And the screenplay won an award at the Austin Film Festival, and I'm translating it into a short novella now. And that's truly an adult fiction book. So it's a stretch from the middle grade work, but I like having that different flexing of my writing muscles. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. And I already have it really done. It's just changing it from a screenplay to a novel is the process I'm going through.
Okay, tell us about this European trip you took.
Oh my goodness. Well, the European trip, that was a great trip. It was a 21-day tour of Europe, and it was really one of the best trips I've ever been on. It was right at the end of college. It was a graduation present from the folks, and we went to Austria, England, Italy, France, and we met up with kids from all over the world. We're on this tour, and you kind of just threw your bag on the bus and went from city to city. We had a lot of great adventures. Still to this day, it's the only time I've been to Europe, but to this day, one of the best trips I ever took. My brother and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was awesome.
So which was your favorite country?
Yeah, It's a good question. Well, I loved Italy a lot. And if I were to go back, I would want to do England and Italy again. We didn't get to go to Ireland when we were there, and I would like to see Ireland too. But yeah, I think from that trip, Italy was definitely my favorite. I found the country to be beautiful. The food was amazing. The people were so warm, and I just absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
That's where, other than Ireland and Scotland, that was where I want to go. So, okay.
Well, I hope you get there, Luann.
Well, my daughter is going to London with her husband's being stationed there. And so
Awesome.
they told me I have to come visit them, and they're going to take me into Scotland, Ireland, and so forth. So.
Oh, that's going to be wonderful.
I don't know if I'll make Italy.
Well, good enough.
But anyway, what goals would you like to accomplish in the next 5 years?
Oh, nothing big. Just to be on the New York Times bestseller list, of course, Luann. Yeah. What else do I want to do?
You should do
right?
that.
Yeah, I want to do that. I'd love to finish my trilogy and the projects that I have in play, of course, by that time. And just really, as you and I were talking earlier in the interview, just spend time with family and friends. It's you never know how much time you have in this world, and that is my number one priority.
I think that's very wise. You're a wise person.
Thank you.
Okay, and we all have some little quirk about us. What is a quirk that you have that most people aren't aware of?
Well, I guess those close to me are aware of this. It is a weird little quirk, but I am a bit addicted to cheese curls and cheese puffs. It sounds totally silly, I know, but I kind of grew up eating Cheetos, and I've branched out and I've tried all different brands and different kinds. My favorite is actually a local generic brand from one of our local grocery stores, Harris Teeter. They have the best cheese puffs, and I've tried them all. So I will go through a couple bags of those a week.
What brand is that?
It's a local grocery store here called Harris Teeter. It's their generic cheese puff brand.
Really?
Yeah, I promise. It's the best.
Super. Okay. Is there any final word you'd like to say before we close?
I just would like to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I hope your readers keep following you and enjoy my book. And I'd love to hear from anybody. You can sign up on my site at www.missmulligan.com.
Okay, and we'll list your other links as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Luann. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and goodbye. And we want to remind all of you to search the universe through books. Goodbye.